No, my lawyer said I can't be Stevie Nicks. I'm just a generic, non-specific look-alike.
And we are. Welcome to the generic, non-specific Stevie Nicks podcast. I'm your co-host, Randy.
And I'm Anthony. Welcome, everybody, viewers,
Thank-
listeners. We appreciate you.
We really do. Um, Anthony, what are we talking about today?
Um, I don't know it that well. Randy wants to diverge from the typical, and he wants to cover this obscure English band. I something like Flotsam McBuckingham. I don't know what it's called. I don't know. You go, Randy. Go ahead.
Mackie McFlooney Lou. Yes.
That sounds
Uh,
like it. Yeah, Mackie McFlooney. Yeah.
we're going to cover one of the albums that helped back Stevie in the early 70s. It was
Of course,
a
we're joking.
Yes, today we're actually going to talk about rumors. Yes, the fan has waited long enough. We're going to cover Fleetwood Mac rumors. We are going to concentrate specifically on Stevie's contributions and not the entire album in general. As Anthony has pointed out many, many times when I brought this up, everybody talks about rumors. There's rumors, thought pieces. There's the history of the album is out there. We don't need to cover the entire album. And he's
Rumors.
right.
Who's ever heard of that album?
Right, right. But the other side of that coin is that it really is, it's Fleetwood Mac's best-selling album. It is, it Stevie's song Dreams was Fleetwood Mac's only number one um, hit in the United States, those kinds of things. So it really
Yeah.
is important. Uh,
It
and
is. It is, of course.
so,
And
but
it's
we're,
Fleetwood Mac's 11th studio album,
yes,
right? I
11th
think.
studio
Am I right?
album.
Okay.
It was released in 1977. It stayed on the charts longer than any other album in 1977. Um, it has sold upwards of 40 million copies. It remains one of
And
the
it's
top,
not done yet.
and it's not done yet. In fact, Billboard released its chart of rock album sales in 2025, and Rumors was the top selling rock album of 2025, and it continually tops the vinyl record sales chart, which I think is amazing in this day and age. But I'm going to try to do like the history, just for context, the history of the recording of Rumors in 60 seconds or less. And if you want to time me, feel free to do so. But as everybody knows, in 1976, the band had just finished touring behind the White Album. And as they were going into the studio to do their follow-up album, Stevie and Lindsay broke up. John and Christine McVie got a divorce, and Mick Fleetwood and his wife got a divorce. But they really understood that none of them were going to leave the band, and they were going to try to make an album with all of the exes having to sing and play together. And every song on that album, except for one, was written during the recording of that. And they were all of them written about the breakups. And that was one of the things that gave that why people identify with Rumors so much. So they recorded Rumors in Sausalito and they released it and toured behind it. And it became the behemoth that it is, not just because of the musical soap opera, which people talk about all the time, but it truly is an amazing pop album. And it tops the list of breakup albums. And, Adele owes a debt of gratitude to Rumors. Taylor Swift owes a debt of gratitude to Rumors. The Dixie Chicks, sorry, the Chicks, uh, all of them.
Smashing Pumpkins? What?
Smashing Pumpkins,
Yeah.
yes.
I
And
mean, the
anybody,
list would go on and on and on. Yeah.
the list would go on and on. But so for me, Rumors, I identify that with my parents' marriage because I was about 12 when they got divorced, and I was really just discovering Fleetwood Mac at that time. And so, my mom was Stevie and my dad was Lindsay. And that's where Rumors was kind of rooted in my psyche for a very long time. But it's an amazing album. I listened to the entire thing from beginning to end just a few days ago. I will tell you, if you have a subscription to Apple Music and you can listen to the Dolby Atmos lossless remaster, it's the thing that made listening to Rumors sound fresh and new to me. So that's kind of my overall take on the album. Anthony, what about you?
I wanted you to know we talked earlier. Spotify has the same sort of thing.
Oh,
Where,
they do. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
I did not listen to it on that because I didn't have the chat time, but I noticed it. Um, so Rumors was released in February of '77, and
Yeah.
that's the year I started high school. So
Yeah.
little awkward, little nerdy me. I recall hearing a lot of those songs, especially specifically Dreams, you know,
Yeah.
um, on an AM radio in my parents' bathroom as I did housework on the weekends,
Oh, wow.
chores. I don't think there's a Gen Xer alive who doesn't have a memory of hearing those songs from the back seat of their parents' car.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
I have spoken to so many folks, and when I tell them, Stevie Nicks comes up in conversation and they hear Dreams, I go, "Oh yeah, I remember hearing that." And it's always the back seat of my mother's car, my uncle's car, my father's car, and on a
Right.
long drive in the summer. It's like
Yeah.
it's a wonderful thing. Um, I wasn't aware of Stevie yet. We've talked about this, Randy. I won a copy of that album at a pool party hosted by my ninth grade teacher for all the students in his homeroom. Um, and so I started playing the songs myself, and I spent so much time going, okay, she must be Lindsay, and that guy with the afro must
Right.
be Stevie because
Right.
right. So didn't have any awareness at that point. These were breakup songs, right?
Right. They were just pretty songs to listen to.
And also like we're not going to talk about the Lindsey Buckingham songs, but I'm listening to secondhand news and and such, and to me, I was all of the songs that I listened to that were like, "Oh, that bad person," I was down with all of them. I can't,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, so no one should break your heart. It wasn't until I found out he was right about my girl that, oh my God, I'm with you.
Right.
We have to
Oh,
have a meeting in Lay's room, Mr. Lindsay. So yeah, these songs were, in a nutshell, songs that influenced, especially, Rhiannon, Goldust Woman, along with Dreams. I know Rhiannon was the other album, but altogether they influenced my adolescence and the way I thought about life,
oh yeah, for
quite
sure.
simply. Yeah.
It's so true. Well, then with that, let's actually dig into the tracks. We're going to cover the tracks that were on the song, the tracks that were on the album, one very famous track that was left off the album, and a few other contenders that had been brought into the studio that ended up not getting very far, but showed up later in Stevie's career. But of course, we're going to start with, and I'm sorry I don't have my cranberry juice with me, but Dreams. I mean,
Well, this is
this,
cranberry juice. I swear.
of course it is. Of course it's cranberry juice. Dry January. Um, so as I mentioned before, Dreams is Fleetwood Mac's only number one single in the United States. It charted number one for only 1 week, um, but
Which
it
is
was
astounding to even think about now,
right,
right?
right, yeah,
Especially back then, music and movies and TV shows would be number one for, months. So that
yeah,
this, what I consider, and I know you agree, the masterpiece was recognized, but only for a week.
but
I
only
didn't
for
look it up. What was it competing with,
I don't know, but
Okay.
I'll look that up and I'll put it up on our blog. He says, you know, knowing that he might not get to it. Um, but yes, I'll look at the charts for the singles. Also with the albums, I know Rumors competed with Hotel California a lot because they talk
Yeah.
about that a
Yeah.
lot. But there were other things, and of course, famously, Saturday Night Fever is what knocked Rumors off of the top selling album
Uh,
of the 70s. But anyway, a lot of time in the recording studio, Stevie wasn't needed, especially during the early albums, Fleetwood Mac and Rumors and even Tusk to a point. And so, but they would make her be in the studio. They would be like, you have to be in the studio. And then she would have nothing to do. And so one night she took her little piano and went into Sly Stone's studio at Village Recorders and sat down. And according to her, she put this little drum beat on her keyboard and she liked it and wrote Dreams in like 5 minutes. Ran back into the studio and was like, guys, I wrote this song and here you got to listen to it. And she played it for them and they were a little underwhelmed. In fact, Christine McVie is quoted as saying she found it very boring. It was only two chords. And this is where, no matter what you think of him personally, this is where, like Lindsay's production genius comes into play because like, oh, I can do something with that.
near, 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 near.
And they put it together and cut the first couple of takes that night. And of course, it became the worldwide phenomenon that it is now.
Right.
She often says that it is a hopeful answer to Go Your Own Way. Where Lindsay was mean, she was hopeful about how they would come out of the other side of this breakup and survive. And then, of course, our good friend Nathan Apodaca, who was the skateboarding, cranberry juice drinking TikTok sensation that put this back into the cultural zeitgeist in 2020. And it has stayed there because even now, if you look at TikTok, YouTube,
Yeah.
Instagram Reels, Dreams is the background soundtrack for like 80% of your reels
And
and
the
things.
younger folks who discovered it and were like, who's this new artist?
Right.
Where's this new song from? It just makes you want to smile, right?
It really does. So I've done my share of talking for the moment. Where are you with Dreams? What do you
I
think of Dreams from the time you listened to it to today?
even back then though, but not then, like shortly after, so 78, I began to think about romance. And this song was about unrequited love, not a breakup, in my perspective.
Hmm. Okay.
And so I felt like I understood that. And you're young, you're worried. It's like, I'll never be loved.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was hopeful,
Yeah.
and also both this song, Goldust Woman, we'll talk later about that, but Stevie's very direct in songs. I don't know if she is in
Hmm.
real life. Even though it's flowery language and there's metaphors and there's all the good stuff, of a songwriter, it was pretty clear what she was saying. And she's like, it's funny to me because, in my opinion, if you reduce the message down to its lowest common denominator, she was saying, go your own way, but in a nice way.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
you know,
Absolutely. You
the thing about that song
know.
is the high notes. And Randy and I have discovered a remix of this a long time ago, which we call
Oh,
the Don Phonics version. I don't know what
yeah.
it's really called. Someone just isolated all of the notes, and it's like, ee, it's mixed in like this big bridge of Stevie just making high and low notes in order. It's just really weird and beautiful, and I love it. So I think, her voice was just so wonderful and beautiful in every
Hmm.
way. But Randy knows the hill I'm gonna die on. This is one of the greatest R&B songs of all
Yes,
time.
it
It's
really
an
is.
R&B song dressed up like in yacht rock clothing. I don't, the groove, and again, I got to give that Lindsay some, credit. That
Hmm.
that groove, the near, as I say them, the drums, the bass. It's just it's R&B DNA. And then to add to that, Stevie's vocal was just so super controlled and cool and calm. He just kind of landed closer to soul as a vocal than a rock vocal,
Oh,
you know?
absolutely.
And I
Absolutely.
and players only love
Uh,
you when I'm playing. If you watch the reaction videos on YouTube of young people reacting to the song, when that line gets sung, they're like,
that's right.
yeah. So yeah, I wonder if that song, and it was the only number one ever, let alone it was part of this album, was kind of helping it do more of, it was a crossover between folk and rock. And I wonder if it
Hmm.
just crossed over all over the place. And maybe this is already documented and people have written about it. But I wonder if that's part of what made it such a big seller, one of the biggest sellers in human history, right?
Yeah.
Because it had appeal for so many different kinds of, um, country folks, everybody.
I think there's a lot to that, and especially, because I had not thought of it as an R&B song until you and I talked about it, and then I read something else, and then apparently it was in the production of it was inspired by a song by the Spinners that was an
Ah,
R&B group,
okay.
and then you've seen like there's those videos of those uh, dance troops from the South that are dancing to Dreams, and I'd never thought of it as a dance song, and now I can't think of it as anything but a dance song. And in fact, that Hooked on Phonics remix, which I also love, and if I can find it, Anthony and I did a really fun lip sync of it.
I think I have it somewhere. Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna need to post that by a group called Fleet Mac Wood that is very famous for doing these long, long DJ sets of remixed Fleetwood Mac stuff, and I love their stuff. You can find them on SoundCloud, and they've got like I think 10 volumes of these like 3 hour DJ sets of nothing but remixed Fleetwood Mac stuff, and it's amazing. And that Hooked on Phonics was what gave them their start.
Ah,
So
okay.
shout out to Fleet
Okay.
Macwood. They are really phenomenal. But I agree. It is such a funky, danceable R&B, and a lot of that, aside from the production, is John McVie's bass. That bum
Right,
bum bum
right. Yeah.
bum bum bum, bum. And that just goes to show you can have two chords and make an amazing song out of that. Not everything has to be intricate. Sometimes simplicity will give all of the
It's
musicians room to
it's
play.
just there's a lot of layers there.
Yeah,
It's such a
yeah.
beautiful song. Yeah.
And again with her voice, the fact that I think the harmony that she does with herself on
Yeah.
Dreams is some of the best harmony that she does ever. So
The
yeah,
the
I
one,
agree.
it's not a ding, it's not a criticism. It's something I've always been surprised I don't hear people talk about that song is that she sounds like she has a head cold sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
If you remember the old sitcom folks, Bewitched, and the
Hmm.
Tabitha character would call Endora Grab Baba,
Yes.
and uh, like a heartbeat drives you mad. I
Yeah.
always think of that kind of like, I don't know if that's a speech impediment. So I don't know where that came from. I don't know the origin of that, but there's some of that in that song, but it's fine. It's a little
It
tiny flaw in a sea of perfection.
it
It's not
is.
even a flaw.
Yes.
What is it? Patina.
It is. It's there we go. It's a patina. It's a little texture. It's a little color.
That's right.
Um, I will admit there was a time at which I was tired of hearing dreams. Like I go through these phases where I don't want to hear the hits. I don't want to hear dreams. I don't want to hear stand back. I don't want to hear Edge of 17. I want to hear the deep cuts. And I think I go through that a little bit more than you do because uh, turn on Stand Back, you're going to listen to it. You're never going to skip it,
Yeah.
right?
But just
And
that one though.
yeah, well, I think Edge of 17 too. Um, but there was a time when I absolutely would skip Dreams every time it came on. But I've really grown to appreciate it and understand it for more than it was when I was younger. Uh, okay,
I love that. I love that.
thank you. Um, all right, I guess we're gonna talk about I Don't Want to Know, but we can't talk about I Don't Want to Know without talking about the song that it replaced. So. We'll start with a little bit of Silver Springs. And I do want to say we're just going to talk about the album version, and we're going to save the dance for another day.
Okay.
But
The B-side version.
the B-side version, yes, that
Yeah.
should have been on the album from the beginning.
Right.
Stevie and Lindsay were touring for Buckingham Nicks. They drove under a sign that said Silver Spring, Maryland. And she was like, oh my God, that sounds like such a fabulous place. And started writing about their breakup before they'd even broken up. Now, and then, famously, they went in, they recorded it. The initial version was 8 minutes long.
Is
And
that anywhere? Is that been released? Is it leaked?
I've
Is it
never heard it.
okay?
I've
If you haven't
read
heard it, then it's not out there. But if you're listening and you have it,
if you have it.
you don't have to be public about it, but
Uh, Slide into our DMs.
that's right.
Uh, but
My DMs.
and they were going to put an old Buckingham Nicks song called I Don't Want to Know. And they recorded the entire thing with Lindsay singing lead vocal. Video the next day, Mick Fleetwood took her out and said, we took Silver Springs off. We're putting I Don't Want to Know on. You can either go in and record a vocal for that, or you're going to have one less song on the album. And those were her choices. And as she has said in interviews, I felt like I had a gun to my head, but I went in and sung the vocal anyway. And that's how I Don't Want to Know, which is the only song that wasn't written specifically for Rumors, ended up
Okay.
on Rumors. Also, it was performed live during Buckingham Nicks tours.
Ah,
So when you take that into consideration, every single song from Rumors has been performed live, and all of Stevie's contributions have been performed live. But you know, I Don't Want to Know is okay. If there's a weak link in Rumors, it's I Don't Want to Know. Like it's just to me, it's a throwaway song, and that just makes it worse that Silver Springs was taken off of the album. Sonically, it just sounds like a little cute little folk song. That's
it is. And maybe if they had not had done things so shady and wanted to work and collaborate with her, maybe it could have been something better. But yeah.
yeah. Um, Even when I didn't know about Silver Springs, and I was just listening to Rumors, it was still just a throwaway song to me. It was just like,
Yeah.
back in my cassette days, if I had had a way to skip that song, I would have skipped that song. But that's the good thing about cassettes and vinyl is you have to listen to the whole thing from beginning to end, you know. But I don't have anything else to contribute for I Don't Want to
No,
Know, do you?
no,
Yeah.
no.